Hey, y'all, in this episode of As Good As It Gets, the podcast, we're going to talk a lot about Miss Ad.
All while having a whole lot of fun.
Cue the music. Hi, and welcome back to As Good As It Gets, the podcast, Season 1, Episode 6.
I'm Cris.
And I'm Mikey.
And welcome to our virtual kitchen table, where we're going to just chit-chat with you a little while as we're telling you our story for this first season.
Getting to know us kind of thing, yeah.
Oh, my.
Congratulations, you made the halfway point of Season 1.
And through some rough episodes.
Yeah. If you stuck with us through those first 3 years, then congratulations. You should feel like we do by that point. Pretty happy, satisfied, having fun. And that's when we really got to know each other, was through all that. So
yeah,
we're up to Miss Ad.
The birth of our baby girl.
The final puzzle piece of the trio.
Yes, so Miss Ad came along about 9 years into our marriage.
Yep, and it was a fun 9 months. It was a scary 9 months, but it was a fun 9 months at the same time. We got a lot closer in those 9 months. We did absolutely everything together. Went to every doctor's appointment with you. I asked the doctors lots of dumb questions, especially when you weren't around, but I think the doctor thought I was endearing.
Well, yes. Yeah. We had no idea what we were headed towards. Let's just be honest.
Nope.
So we
have her.
Yeah, Miss Ad is born, and a couple things for someone who, first of all, adjustment in our relationship, having been together 11 years, but then married for 9 years, and then all of a sudden there's this creature we're responsible for. And I remember distinctly being kind of caught off guard by a couple things. One of which was that I had prepared for so long for a baby that as she started to get older, it was shocking to me. And I know that sounds really bizarre, but I remember feeling it's not you go and figure out how to deal with a baby, because by the time you figure out how to deal with a newborn, then you have...
Then boom, they're a toddler.
Yeah, well, you have a 3 to 6 month old. And then once you have a 6 month old, all of a sudden now you've got a 9 month old, and it was constantly changing. And I was like, oh, wow, I don't know what I thought was going to happen, but there was that. Mm-hmm. And then I also remember from being so close during the pregnancy, I distinctly remember she was born, and I was sitting on the couch after we got home from the hospital, and it was like family had finally left. We were by ourselves, and you go, well, I'm going out to the barn. And I just stopped for a second.
That was barn, B-A-R-N, by the way. Oh,
sorry. And I just was like, but what? Wait a minute. Because someone's got to watch the baby. And I think that was a realization as a mom that kind of the buck stopped with me when it came to... where's the baby, keeping a track of where the baby was. And then also that I think especially in those early years, there was a lot of this parenting sometimes, especially at the beginning, can be a lot of not it, there's a dirty diaper, not it.
And hey, I changed my fair share of dirty diapers.
Yes, you did. I'm not saying it was one-sided. I'm just saying that we entered this phase of, holy moly, there's a whole lot more to do around here. And we're used to kind of living independently because also our life had been, with the way the railroad was, there was a lot of time apart. Right. So then you add a child into this factor of... Yeah,
the railroad's not a 9-to-5 job. No. The railroad's 24/7.
Yes.
And we had been with the railroad by then for 7 years, and 3 years prior to Addie being born, I was a yard master.
Right.
So I had taken a desk job, if you will, and I went from being able to hold whatever shift I wanted to being on an extra board, and then from an extra board, it was mostly third shift.
Yeah.
And
so there was a lot of independence, and then you throw a huge responsibility into the middle of all of that. Then it's like kind of adjusting. But I think we did pretty well.
Yeah.
And you were always really, really good about pulling your weight of the equation from the daddy, from the daddy aspect. I mean, even though now I've heard several stories about things that happened, like when Mom was at work.
You're going to rat me out and make me explain
yes,
it.
And those stories come from you telling on yourself because Addie was too young to cry for help.
That's exactly right. And then by the time I tell you, it's too late to do anything about it. Well, I'm going to go backwards in time a little bit. And what my relationship with Addie formed, like when I found out she was a girl.
Yes.
You know, and like I said, I was freaking out. Had a dear friend kind of help me through that, and we buckled down, and I changed my mindset on how we were going to do things. And I talked to your belly constantly, drove you crazy. And anytime we were laying in bed or anywhere, if I got a chance to shoot my face down there, I was talking to your belly.
Yes.
And I'd always say, Addie, it's your daddy.
Yes, you would.
And constantly. As you were more pregnant and you could actually see her moving around, and I'd say, Addie, it's your daddy. And I could see her moving, like, it was like, oh, maybe she heard me. She really did.
Yes.
So we go to the hospital.
Yes.
And that was, out of the 9 months of all the doctor's appointments and all that stuff, they separated us for like a whole 20, 25 minutes because they were doing the epidural to you.
Yeah.
And
having to do it. Well, it wasn't just it was a spinal because.
Or spinal, yeah.
And they had to do it twice because they did it wrong the first time, which is kind of a little scary.
For a gal that doesn't like needles.
No, it was not cool.
But I'm dressed up in the hospital garb, you know, the gown and the booties and stuff like that. And I'm with you. And then they're like, okay, we're going to take her back there to do the spinal. You need to stay here. I'm like, nope. I don't stay. I go. I go when I sit with her, and I've been with every appointment. I've been with every part of this. I'm not going to stay here.
And they didn't care.
The dude's like, no, you don't understand. You're going to stay here, and we will bring you back as soon as we're ready. I'm like, you don't take that baby out of there unless I'm there. And I was like, it was horrible because like for like 20, 25 minutes, I'm sitting there. Nobody's telling me anything. I don't know what's going on. And they could have like whisked you away somewhere. I didn't know what was in my head, but it's like I wasn't there. The first time ever I wasn't there. And then they come in, they're like, okay, we're ready. Come on in. So I go in this room and you're doped up. How you doing? You know, because the spinal and everything.
Or as Addie tells everyone in public, Mommy was on drugs.
Yeah, that's another conversation that was my fault.
Yeah. So like, I don't even know. Oh, I asked her one time. She was older, and we were in the store, and I was joking with her, and I'm like, Addie, why is it ever since I had you, I am so tired? And just kidding with her that it's, you know, I'm tired. And she just pipes right up as loud as can be in the middle of a Walmart. Well, Mom, it must be because Dad said you were on drugs when you had me. I'm like, what on earth are you talking about? And eventually it comes out that I believe the conversation was about how she was born and how I had a surgery to have her, and that they had to. Well,
it was because like it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I had said, you know, the drugs had worn off, and she really wanted to meet you.
He was telling the story of when I first got to really hold Addie was after the drugs had worn off from when they sliced me open. Not that I was.
But I'm like, and I'm just thinking. You know, because everybody knows how that works. And so I'm like, yeah, you know, the drugs wore off, and it was time for you to go
all
meet
of
Mom.
Walmart, you know,
knows that
mommy was on drugs whenever she had me.
But when she was born, I remember I was holding your hand and talking to you, and of course trying to peek around the curtain and everything, and the doctor kept giving me a look like, don't look back here. And then Addie comes out, and the first thing I heard is, wow, what a head of hair. And they pull her up, and she had a huge dark head of hair. All healthy, 10 fingers, 10 toes, little girl. And they sit over there to do the tests and everything, reactive tests and stuff like that. And I got to take pictures. And then as they were finishing up the test, I was talking to her and I went, Addie, it's your daddy. And she was crying and everything. And she stopped and she looked up at me. And then she started crying again. Like, this is what I've been waiting on for 9 months. But then I got to pick her up. And I sat her next to your head. And you looked over and I said, hi, Addie. And she stopped crying and looked right at you like, that's the lady.
Yep. That's been in my head all these months.
Yeah. So it was exciting. It was amazing. It was an emotional time. It was exciting. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. Yeah. And so, we take her home early. We were supposed to stay for the 3 days. You're ready to go in 2. Yeah. And the last day we were there, I had changed all the diapers. I had fed her. I was trying to take care of you, let you rest. So I changed every diaper in the hospital. And then the very last diaper, she pooped on my hand.
Oh my goodness.
And I will never ever let her live that down.
Oh goodness. But I'm sure she's glad you're sharing that too. Yeah.
Addie, when you listen to this, sorry. But yeah, we took her home and the adventure, that part of the adventure began.
Yes. And so I was still working. So I had my maternity leave and then between your schedule and my schedule and grandparents, and then we were getting like a daycare once a week, I think. Or I think once every 2 weeks or something like that. That's kind of, we were like tag teaming it, but it was hard because everybody was working, trying to do all the things that we were supposed to do. But she was, and still is, Joy, very, very verbal, very early on. Even before she learned words, she was very, very verbal, always talking, made up words until she learned words, and then just very verbal. So and we had a lot of fun.
I'm very thankful that we're living in the day and age where you could film everything. We were right there right when phones started recording things. And of course we started getting cameras.
So
we have
a handful like the time where I would have her say, Addie, what does the doggy say? And she'd go, woof, woof, woof. Addie, what does the duck say? Quack, quack. Addie, what does the daddy say? Sorry.
I think you taught her that one.
Maybe.
But just an adorable kid, smart kid, and she was a lot of fun.
Yes.
And
still is.
Oh, wow, she's a blast now. She's so smart.
Yes.
And I got her that ukulele, and she picks up this ukulele, and I tried to get her to learn how to play guitar, and I'm not a teacher. I can play guitar, but I can't teach you how to play guitar. I could peck around on a piano, but I couldn't teach you how to play piano. So I'm like, do what I did, go to YouTube. So she could peck around a little bit, and she'd start to pick it up, and then she'd set it down. And then, but now I get her this ukulele, and within the first night, she can play a full song, and I'm like, yeah, she gets those brains from you.
No. Not the musical talent, though.
No, I'll give her the musical talent, but the way she picks everything up,
it's called being obsessed with it to the point of driving everyone crazy, because that's kind of, she comes by that honest.
Yeah, she gets that from both of us.
Yes.
If I get involved in a project, I'm like in it until it's done. Yes. And I'm very obsessive and kind of grumpy sometimes.
Yeah, hence the reason we're taping all 10 episodes of a podcast.
Within the first couple days, Well, we got to get it out. We got to get it to the people.
Yes.
They got to get to know us.
Yes.
Getting to know you. So Addie's born.
Yes.
And we're having fun. We're trying to learn this whole parenting thing. And I think it was good at the time. I mean, would never want to do a third shift job again. I did that for a long time. Through all areas that I worked in the railroad, I was on third shift a lot. And I went to sleep to a lot of sunrises. But the good thing about it was a lot of the time I was working third shift, and then I'd come home just in time to kiss you as you were going out the door to go to work. And then I could take care of Addie till you got home.
Right.
And, I'd take a nap when she'd take a nap. And then when you got home, I'd go back to bed real quick and get some sleep for work. But I learned that early on parenting to an infant / baby, before they can walk and crawl, but they're starting to notice things and pick up on colors and sounds and stuff, that they're boring. You know, it was boring. I mean, I couldn't sit there on the couch, especially because I was tired. I just got done working a shift at night. I come home, and of course, I'd eat breakfast or something. And then, but Baby Einstein's was a big thing. It was real big with the kids back then. Maybe still is now. I don't know. We haven't watched it in a while, but it would lull me to sleep. But I could put Addie in this little rocker swing thing, and it would automatically swing for me, and I didn't have to do anything. I would just set it, forget it, set the kid down in there. You know, maybe put like a little snack or two on her tray that she could chew on, or gum at the time. And
gum? No.
Yeah.
Your baby is not chewing gum.
No, not gum. No, she would gum instead of chew, because she didn't have teeth. No,
I'm learning all kinds of things. I
wasn't giving my kid gum, but you know, like the little things
like
that the baby.
Gummies.
Yeah.
Or well, I don't think at that age, when the story that you're setting up right now happened, that you were giving her too many finger foods. I think she was probably on the bottle at this point.
I probably gave her a Snickers or something while you were gone. Anyway, I was bored, and I was
at work.
Yeah, she was at work, and I couldn't go to bed because I've got this live baby swinging in a swing. But I'm like,
for now,
she's good. I'll put a monitor on her. I've got the monitor, you know, the audio. I think it was an audio monitor. I don't think it was video. No, it wasn't video because I didn't know till I got back in there. Anyway, anywho, Baby Einstein's is going on. She's sitting there in her swing, and she's just watching it like she was glued to it. So I'm like, well, I'll go back in the back room and record some music or something more adult than Baby Einstein's. So I go back here in the back room, and I'm back here for maybe 15 minutes or so.
Now, to explain, we had what was all the rage at the time, which was like a Papasan baby swing, which is like this big, like bowl, flattened bowl-like shape swing in which you would then latch the child in and then put the harder shell plastic attachment on to keep the child in the chair.
Yeah, so it's like the baby was in a seatbelt that went across her lap, and then there was this like a tray, you know, again for the gummies or whatever, or toys or whatever.
Right.
And so she's fully secure, latched in place, everything's good to go. I go in here into our studio, and I'm like playing around with music or probably watching stupid videos on the internet or something to occupy my time other than Baby Einstein's. And I hear and I'm like, what in the world is that? And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Addie. So I come in there, I come strolling because I'm like, what's she doing? I come in there into the living room, and she had halfway crawled out of the swing, still in the seatbelt, but hanging out of the swing that was still automatically swinging, and it was swinging her, and every time it would swing her up, she'd cry, and then it would thump her head on the ground. And then swing her backwards and then thump her head on the ground.
You are the reason why they have to put warning labels on these baby products.
Yes.
Okay.
It was the last time that happened.
Yes. And I will tell you that I did not know that happened at all. That was never told to me until much later when I had to do some investigating because of something else that had happened. Yeah. Because I came home one day from work and went up to our bed, and curiously, all the way around our bed were all these pillows, like laying on the ground around our king size bed. And I'm like, what is going on here? And what I realized pretty quickly after a confessional was that those pillows were there as a preventative measure.
Addie and I were upstairs, and I was tired. So I thought, I can't leave her, but I'm tired. I'm going to take a small nap while she's laying in bed with me, watching Baby Einstein's.
Now we know who the true villain of all these
stories Baby Einstein's, yeah. What were they doing? I think there was a subliminal message saying, try to crawl away. Try to crawl away. That's what all those colors were for. But I fall asleep. I doze off just briefly. Mm-hmm. And in that little brief moment of dozing off, thud, cry.
Oh, no.
She had rolled off the bed onto the floor.
There were no pillows there at that point.
Nope. So I think what we've gained from this episode is I'm a horrible father.
No. What we've gained is we probably weren't very wise in our decision making of having to make you responsible after working third
because
shift.
I'm an irresponsible father.
No. Because you were tired and sleep deprivation is a real thing.
But we had to do what we had to do.
Well, and I think eventually what ended up happening was we decided because when Addie was 2, I started or she had just turned 2, I started Goodness Gracious. Mm-hmm. And pretty soon
that's goodnessgracious.com, which is our first blog.
Yeah. And so pretty soon I realized that was something that I enjoyed doing, something I was good at, and that I could potentially start doing more things on the internet and be able to stay at home and care for Addie while launching like the website.
So Goodness Gracious was born in 2009 then?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And so then by the spring of 2010, I decided, a lot of things had happened because as we mentioned, we had gotten out of debt, but then in the process of getting the house and having a child, we got way back down into debt.
Yep.
And I think it was right around that same time in 2009, we went to Financial Peace University at a local church, and we went through that course and began to come up with a game plan and figured out like how to get out of our debt situation. And so we started doing that.
Part of the reason how we did that was you took the bills back over because I was bad at it.
But we both had a period in our, like the first time that we got into all the mess, I was in charge of the bills and it had gotten completely out. Yeah. And then the second time you were in charge and it had gotten completely out. So then it was like we just kept
never had the electricity shut off when you did the bills.
We mentioned this whole math issue thing.
Yeah,
but anyhow, long story short, we started getting our act together because we went through Financial Peace and learned a lot of things about how we were communicating, and then also learning, how to do simple things that helped us save money and get ourselves out of debt so that, for example, we didn't have to continue to put our child in a situation in which you were working third shift and I was working first shift and
she was getting her head thumped.
It just wasn't an ideal situation. So by the time it was the spring of 2010, we had worked together as a team. We were talking about how we learned that if we work together instead of against each other, which was another thing we kind of learned in Financial Peace too. Yeah. Was that, this isn't us fighting over a scrap of bread. This is us working together to build what we wanted to build.
I remember one of the things that really struck me in Financial Peace was, Ramsey talked about like if you're a married couple and you're trying to make the money work. He goes, you're not just married people, you're business partners because this is a business. It's money. Yeah. So you have to know how to work it.
So that was the beginning. And so then by the spring of 2010, Goodness Gracious was running, and I had this extreme passion for blogging and doing
kind of good at it.
Social media and those kinds of things. And so I was going to leave my well-paying job to see if I could make it with a business that was based pretty much entirely in the internet kind of thing. And so we decided, and there's no way we could have done that had we not gotten our act together. Like all the pieces just kind of fell into place. Right. And so at that same time, we made that decision. Then you got an opportunity shortly thereafter to get a promotion at work at the railroad.
So in the spring of 2010, you come to me and you say, I think I want to quit my job. And it was a good paying job. You know, it was a state job, and it was just a great job, and it made good money.
Yes.
And I was still the bigger breadwinner at the time on my job, and I knew we could handle things. And I'm like, man,
we were going to take a significant pay cut. Like, it was going to be a significant pay cut, but at the same time, it meant that I could be with Addie and stay at home with Addie.
And you laid out the plan. You're like, for now, we're probably going to lose like $20,000 a year at least in income when I quit. But there's the possibility of new contracts and, you know, new business ventures and what I want to do that could possibly lead to an equal amount of pay. Or, gosh, you know, in blogging, the sky could be the limit.
Well, I didn't really at that time realize that I could do that with the blog itself, but more or less what my goal was to hopefully gain other clients and help them with their like Facebook pages and stuff like that. And so, and by the time that I ended up quitting, I had gotten enough clients to make up my.
Yeah, you were almost back to where you were. But I mean, it was like...
But I had the freedom and flexibility to stay home with Addie. And then you also were presented with an opportunity at the same time. But that opportunity meant you were going to have to go to Atlanta for 10...
Well, going back to you first, let's talk about you on that. I believed in you, you know, and I have always had a problem in telling you no. I have. And it not because I'm scared of. I mean, we've established that I'm scared of you.
You're scared, yeah.
But every time that you did something, every time that you said I'm going to quit this job and go to another job. You know, the very first time you did that, you quit the first job that you had, working for the nonprofit, and you know you started working for the state.
Yes.
You made more money, which was good, but you advanced really quick because people were like, "Oh my gosh, she's really good at what she does." So then when that shifted over to a different job with the state, you're like, I'm going to go work over here now because they want me to work over here. I'm like, I bet she does really good at it. And then you had an awesome boss that just poured wisdom into you and gave you assets to learn more about, you know, how to work with social media and, you know, different technology to work with at the time, and gave you contacts to work with. And she pretty much just like, she set you free to grow and to bloom and, you know, into what would equip you to quit your job with the state later.
Right.
And so whenever you said, I want to quit my job, take a huge pay cut, be a stay-at-home mom and blog, plus I'll have all these other contracts too, but you know, I want to totally upend what we're doing right now. What do you think? I was like, go for it. You know, there was a thought. It wasn't like I didn't hesitate and go. I just go, yeah, have at it, honey.
Well, I will say,
pat you on the head and let you go.
Between the two of us, I'm typically the person who pulls the brakes.
You're the more analytical person on stuff.
I'm the one. So I think if it gets to the point where I'm saying, hey, let's do this, you probably, like, it's probably gotten past the point where you feel comfortable, because my comfort level is always at a different place than yours.
But it's also that, again, everything that you did, you know, that you strived to do. I'll look that up later on thesaurus.com or dictionary.com. Everything you wanted to do, you did well. And it's because you didn't just do it in a whim as much as you studied for it, you trained yourself on it, or you had someone train you on it, and you had equipped yourself to do well before you jumped into it.
Well, I will say not everything worked or works.
No.
I will say it won't fail for a lack of trying, whatever it is. And so that, I mean, it's not so much belief that nothing's ever going to not go the way we want. It's more or less knowing that no matter what, we're going to, and I don't think it's just me, it's us, because there's no way I could have taken on that pay cut and went in that direction if you weren't carrying our health insurance and you know, the primary bulk of our bills and all those kinds of stuff, providing stability and that kind of stuff. So it was more or less that it was everything's always a risk, but it was a calculated risk.
Right. But going back to Miss Ad, we started venturing out more from the house as she got a little older. And I remember we went to Tennessee with her. And
she fell off a bed there too.
Well,
it is a wonder our child survived us. I was there for that one.
Well, as one of those again where I had been working really, really hard.
Yes.
Busted my tail. There were 16-hour shifts. There was overtime galore.
Yes.
And I had made a very decent amount of money within like a couple months.
And as we've already established, we didn't go to new places. We always went back.
Always went back to the same
went
place.
back to Tennessee.
But I wanted to surprise you again, and I'm like, we're going to Tennessee.
Yes.
And I took care of it. I booked it without talking to you. And I remember renting this ridiculous cabin. And
there were lots of stairs in this cabin.
It was
like an unusual amount.
Gorgeous. But it had of course it had the hot tub, but this hot tub wasn't attached. It was like outside in a gazebo.
Downstairs.
And of course it had the pool table. It had a huge front room. And I mean, it turned out this place was for sale at the time. And it was like $800,000 is what they wanted for it. There's no acreage, but it was a mansion. I felt like I had made it. I was in this job making great money. I think you were still working for the state at the time, but we took the time off and
yes, I was at that time. Yes.
And so we booked this ridiculous cabin. I don't know. It was like $300-400 a night. I was an idiot. It was only for like 2 nights, but it was like, I'm going to do something regal for my wife. Book this cabin, and we're changing. I just get Addie changed. We're getting ready to get out the door, and I turn around to say something to you, and I see the look on your face of no.
Yeah.
Addie rolls off the bed, falls flat on her face. So again, horrible father, but I'm making good money.
No, wait a second. No, you are not. Well, first of all, you're not a horrible father, because let's back up. He was changing her diaper. Like, that was huge. Like, we didn't grow with Addie growing up, and especially with as much of the caretaking in the early years that she was taking. Like, when we would go out as a family, it wasn't that mom always went and changed Addie's diaper, or mom always went and got the bottle that was left in the car. We would tag team whoever, because we decided we didn't like the not it game. So it was always whoever had done it last, then the next time it was the other person's. Yeah. And so then the men's bathroom without the changing tables became my nemesis, because it was like,
oh, can't do it. Sorry.
He can't do it because you're not equipping him.
But we had a good time. I mean, we started going, and then as she got older, I think was she 3 or 4 the first time that we went to Disney? Because we'd go to the beach, we always went to Daytona. We
did venture out. That's true. We ventured out from Tennessee, and I think that cabin was our last time at Tennessee, because here's the other deal.
Addie kept falling on the floor.
Like, when she was that little, there was not, like, the things that we loved to do in Tennessee, be it like go hiking and those kinds of things, weren't so easy to do with a little kid, like a little.
Right.
I mean, now, mind you, I'm sure there are plenty of people who strap on the backpacks and all that kind of stuff, and that's great. But back then, that's not the way we were thinking. We were overwhelmed anyways. So it was like, okay, what can we do that is easier and gives her something to do? Because, like, a cabin with tons and tons of stairs everywhere is just like a death trap for a little,
especially around this guy.
And so we had found a really cool place down in Florida, a beach area that that we just loved, and it was very family friendly, and Addie loved the beach. She loved playing in the sand.
There was hardly any younger people that would go to this. The first time we went there, it was like there was all kinds of neat people. They had a happy hour every day. They had live music.
Yeah, we found a retiree hotel. I'm not joking, but it really worked out because it was truly like every time we would go there would be like, I mean, it was like the travel buses that retirees would take a lot of times to like travel all kinds of places. They'd come and the bus would come and bring them there, and then they'd stay for long, like a week or whatever. And so we would get to know a lot of the retirees that came to this hotel. And Addie was, of course, never knew a stranger, was very, very, like, friendly and all of that.
By the time she was 3, she was saying hi to everybody.
Well, she was, but it truly was like each week, every time we would go there, it would be like she would adopt a whole new range of grandparents.
Yeah. And they knew her. They would know her.
And as parents, you know, on the beach, it was like really nice that we even had extra sets of eyes to kind of help, you know, make sure she was safe all the time. And so we just really enjoyed that for a season of our life. And then I don't know if I had a friend go to Disney or what it was.
Well, before we get to Disney, though, Florida was not an option for me. I went there when I was a kid, and Disney World was boring at the time because I was with my parents, and my parents didn't want to ride rides, and that's all I wanted to do. We rode It's a Small World. That was my thrill ride at Disney World. So I'm like, no. And then, of course, you read about stuff in the news, and so I had painted a... And if there's anybody listening that lives in Florida, you just bear with me through this story.
Because he gets over his problems.
But Florida was not an option. Florida was nothing
I
but...
thought he was crazy.
In my mind, Florida was nothing but shootings, drug cartels,
and I totally did not understand where this is coming from, because aside from traveling out west with my family, the one place that my family would revisit as a child would be Florida. And we would go on beach vacations on a regular basis. It was one of my mom's favorite places to go. So when he was like describing all the crime and all the problem, I'm like, where are you getting that? Like I'm sure that there's a fair amount of crime there, as there is everywhere, but like never once did I go as a child or even as a teenager or a young adult and feel like it was like this big dangerous place that you had made it. It was a death trap.
Florida.
I think we
there were sinkholes in the news, hurricanes. It was hot. There's snakes in Florida.
I don't know what he was thinking about, because like I think we even had this like weird discussion prior to our honeymoon, because I would have probably preferred to have honeymooned in Florida, yeah. But you were like, no, like it's dangerous there. And I'm like, you have got to visit there before you can say that. So I think you had some stories told to you or something. It was weird.
I think so. But we end up going. We go to Florida, and for like 2 or 3 years straight, we stopped going to Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, and we started going to Daytona.
Yes.
And stayed there. And then somebody had mentioned something about Disney World, that you're only about an hour and a half away from Disney.
Yes. And so while we were at that beach, that first beach not first beach, but we were at a beach vacation, we planned 2 different days to go to Disney. And we had absolutely no idea what we were doing. So much, and on top of that, Addie and I had gotten sick, like really like sore throat, running fevers, sick.
But we had paid for tickets for Disney World, so
we
had
had
to
already
go.
paid. And that was also the story, if you remember correctly. Part of the reason why we got to do all of that was because we were needing a new truck, because your truck was like literally rusting through the bottom, and we had gotten that money back from.
Yeah. Okay. So I had my truck for 10, 11 years. So this is 2011 now. And this would have been, it had to have been 2011, because that's when I bought the truck. It was a 2011 truck that I bought. And
but it was in the fall before it came out, I think. I think she was still 3, but go ahead.
No.
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
No, because I was a dispatcher then. I was still a yard master. We hadn't done that yet. And in fact, we were going to go to Florida one time and I couldn't because the brakes were bad on the truck and it cost so much we had to cancel our vacation.
Right.
But we ended up going to Disney, and
but before that, the reason we could afford it was because we had gotten that money back on that truck.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Well, that would have been 2011 then.
I don't know. Anyhow,
I think your story's getting mixed up here, lady. 2011, because it was a 2011 Tacoma that I bought. And it was the 2011 was a great truck, but I'd had my truck for, 10, 11 years.
You got to pull out the internets.
I needed a new truck. I wanted a new truck. I just got this new job. And again, got put into some positions where it was making me a lot of extra money. It was ridiculous what the railroad will throw at you at times if you just say, okay. And so I was doing the special duty job and made a lot of money within about 3 or 4 weeks and working as many hours as I wanted to. And I made enough money to where I could put a really good down payment on a truck. And so I call around to different dealerships and everything. And we end up going to a dealership on the north side of Indy.
I hate it when you're right. Darn it.
I kind of like it when I am. Let's say it one more time. I was what?
You were right. I just looked it up because I wrote a blog post about it a long time ago.
In 2011, I buy a new truck. And I take my truck in, and it was a clunker. It was in bad shape. I didn't take care of that truck at all. But I take it into the dealership, and they're like, "Oh, we'll give you that was like $6,000 or something." Because Toyotas are great on resale value, no matter what their condition are. This thing was 11 years old. It was in bad shape, and they said we'll give you like $6,000 or $6,500 or something like that for it. And and I put a down payment with the rest of it, and it was a payment again. We had a car payment again, but it was worth it because I got a new truck, and I thought I'd earned it. And I was working. I was doing that special duty job. I think, yeah, yep. I was working that special duty job, and I get a phone call from the owner of the dealership. Now I'm talking like the guy that you see on the TV, the owner of the dealership. He calls me, and he says, "Mr. Goode, we have a problem." I'm like, I don't think we have a problem. I've got a nice truck. What are you going to do? I'm like, oh no, they're going to take something good away from me. And he's like, well, you see, your original vehicle that you traded to us was involved in a recall. I had no idea, what that meant. And I'm like, okay. He goes, so I could take the title of the truck and I could trade it in, but I don't think that's ethical because it was technically your truck whenever the recall happened. I said, okay. He goes, I think you will probably get about $11,000 to $12,000 for your truck. And again, remember, I traded it in for like $6,000 or $6,500. He goes, I just want you to come to the dealership. We're going to swap trucks real quick. You're going to get your truck back, and you're going to pay me for it. You're going to pay me. I think to break even with everything, I had to pay him like an extra $500. I would get my truck back. I would get the title to the truck back. They would, of course, keep the truck, and I was keeping mine. And he's like, and then you get the money for the recall because it was your truck. He goes, I can't in good conscience take that money that was yours, which I'm floored because you don't see that kind of ethics in business anymore. This dude could have made twice over. What he was going to offer for it was like twice as much as what he was paying for it. And so I get home, and Toyota calls me. Toyota Corporation calls me and says, "Here, we were here to tell you about your truck and what we're going to give you for the recall." I'm like, "Okay, go ahead." And I'm thinking, man, if I hit $12,000, this is going to be a windfall. They said, we're going to give you $14,500 for it. They gave me $14,500 for this truck. I ended up out of pocket paying like $7,000 for a brand new pickup truck. And, of course, we had just done.
It says that they gave us $7,500.
That was $75,000 for the old truck.
I'm sorry. Yes.
But here's the thing about Dave Ramsey. We came into all that money that we needed, and we spent it. But we didn't just spend it on a huge vacation. We spent it on bills. We paid off a huge chunk of our debt. I practically paid off the truck. In fact, I ended up paying the truck off within that year.
Right.
And But then we saved some of that money back.
Well, to be clear, we had already been saving up for a vacation, but not a Disney vacation.
Yeah.
Because and this was not our first time, by the way, because like all of it's coming back now that I read what I was scrolling through what I wrote
the first time.
The first time was when y'all got sick. Yeah, and so then we visited again. We went back in the fall, and I think we fell in love with Disney really, really quickly. It's not hard to do.
The second day we did, the very first day that we went to Disney.
Yes.
Because we get up and you and Addie are both sick. We end up getting a late start because y'all are sick and you just wanted to rest.
Right.
We got to go to.
And we had a hotel an hour and a half away, which is not advisable.
So we drive an hour and a half to Disney. You're miserable. Addie's sick.
Yes.
And we stay the course. We
do
the park
crowded.
for like
we arrived like in the afternoon, which was like the most busiest part of the day. It was hot. We barely got to do anything.
And didn't know where to go. We didn't know anything about Disney.
We didn't understand how it was structured. We were completely ill-equipped.
Addie threw up everywhere.
Yes, there was
multiple times.
Now, mind you, that wasn't because she was sick. That was just Addie does, like, when she was little, had a really bad gag reflex. So anytime she would eat something too quickly, it was a disaster.
Or new.
Yeah. Yes. So, but anyhow, we got through that first day and we were not impressed at all.
Oh, I was done. I'm going back to the beach.
We actually went back to the beach and had another beach day. And I think we were even kind of on the fence. Like, are we even going to go back? I mean, we had paid for the second day, so we kind of felt like, yeah, we need to go back.
Yeah.
But we're not going back to the Magic Kingdom because that was a zoo and that was chaotic and we don't understand. So we got up earlier. Everybody was feeling better by the day. We ended up going to Hollywood Studios. And this was years ago. So there was a lot more at Hollywood Studios.
Yeah, Hollywood Studios has changed quite a bit since
then.
then.
And it's been in progress of changing. But there was a lot of stuff at Hollywood Studios that's not there today anymore. But anyhow, so we went to Hollywood Studios and it was not crowded at all that day that we went. And we had the most amazing magical time as a family. It was so much fun. We fell hard for Disney.
We became a Disney family after that.
Yeah, I mean, it was like the exact opposite of what our first day was. So then I got us all screwed up by mentioning Butler, but apparently we had because we experienced that, then we realized, okay, we need to study up a little bit more on all of this if we're going to ever go back to Disney, because we didn't do it right. Like, we were too far. Our hotel was too far away. We had no plan other than walk in the gate, and that's not a way.
That's not a good plan.
That's not a good plan.
You need to form a battle plan before you go to Disney.
We didn't know what parks were busy, what days, and we didn't know a lot of things. And so, like we were saying earlier, I started obsessing over learning this because it didn't seem like it had to be this hard. And it was a lot of work to vacation, daggone it. So I started reading Disney blogs. I started connecting with a Disney planner.
There were Disney apps.
Oh, there were. There was all kinds of stuff.
That charted, they knew statistically every day for 365 days.
Yes.
What are the good days?
So it's like, okay,
what are the bad days?
Let's play smarter, not harder. And so that's what we ended up doing. And very quickly... then we also changed some things at home, and that was one of the things, because we started realizing that not only after the next trip, I would say, not only is it a fun place to visit, it was a place where we as a family it was almost like a team building exercise for our family. Like,
I'd like to say that I took you and Addie to Disney World for Addie to experience the magic of Disney World. But honestly,
no,
I could have gone by myself.
Well, there was that, but I think it was the dynamic of experiencing everybody in the family experiencing it. So it was like, it wasn't that I enjoyed it. It was that I enjoyed watching her enjoy it, watching you enjoy her enjoy it. And it was like, it was a very, and then after we had went, we started having almost family traditions around different things. And so, but to make all of that possible, one, we would save, we learned how to save money for our vacations. And so we would save lots of money, like, and that also went to even how we would talk with Addie about things. So like if there was a local carnival that came to town, or we went to the state fair, or we went somewhere and it's a $25 band for your arm to go and get to ride the Ferris wheel and all that kind of stuff, or whatever it was, our family chose to opt out of those things and save that money so that we could go to Disney. Yeah. And that's what we started. We just started saving our entertainment, any kind of entertainment money. Right. We just would push back so that we could go and enjoy that as much as we could.
We had a blast. I mean, we learned how to save money doing it. Mm-hmm. You know, we learned that sometimes a travel agent isn't a bad idea.
No.
And we loved it. We kept going back. We stopped going anywhere else. Did we ever go with those the first 5 years with Ad? Did we ever go, once we started going to Disney, we didn't go anywhere else, did we? I got made fun of at work.
I know. People made fun of us all the time.
Because we would say, but
I think it was
hours of overtime just to make sure we could go.
We made it a priority, and we also would choose to go at times of year when it wasn't as populated, so it was cheaper to go. And oftentimes they would offer free dining. And so we were finding all the tricks to it and we were working with travel agents, which we didn't have to pay because Disney pays the travel agents. Right. You just get to take advantage of the expertise. And we were finding the best deals possible. I can even remember when we went on a Disney cruise, and I mean, it was like crazy low price. Yeah.
Because she had found us a spot on the boat, which our first room was like a great room, and it just happened to be because she's like, well, they can't fill this hole, so you're going in it.
And it was like to this day, we've never seen anything as cheap. I mean, it was cheaper than what you could have went on any kind of cruise, let alone a Disney cruise. And
the next week, it was going to be like $2,500 higher.
Yes, it was crazy. So we were wheeling and dealing, trying to find. I mean, it became a priority. It became something that we just really, really enjoyed, and it was more or less because, again, and we're getting into other parts.
We're not there yet. We're almost to the end of this part.
It became because, I was working, you were working all this overtime. It was like literally us figuring. I oftentimes describe that season and some other seasons of our lives where we literally go underwater and hold our breath until vacation hits, and then we come up gasping for air because we can finally connect as a family. And
I was offered overtime constantly because that week we'll go back to, you had quit your job, and you were working for yourself, and doing well at it. And then so that was the spring, and then in the summer of 2010, I'm like, man, I really just hate my job. I did not enjoy being a yard master anymore. Things had changed.
We skipped that.
Policy had changed. Management had changed dramatically. I had worked for some great men as supervisors there. I wanted to be like them. They were the kind of bosses I wanted to be, and I wanted to have their job someday. And then they advanced up. Then we got new managers, and it's just like the coach of a football team. If you get a great coach for a football team, the team goes far. Everybody loves the coach. But then the coach moves on. You get a new coach, and all of a sudden you've got 2 or 3 losing seasons. And we had those, and I did not like my job anymore because I did a good job at it. I think I might have got yelled at a couple times, but I couldn't really do wrong because I did my job well. But I watched the attitudes around me change, and I'm like, man, I need to find something new. And so I was talking with a dispatcher on the phone. We talk constantly. And Mikey Schmidt, you're a wonderful man. And we were talking one night, and I said, man, a dispatcher job downtown Indy just came open. And what do you think? I mean, is that something, do you think I'd be good at it? He goes, Mac, you're great for this job. You would be great. We'd love to have you down here. You're fun, and you know what you're doing. You're the guy that I always call when we've got problems. So, and I was working, like I would, like 2 hours before I'd go into my shift, I would watch the computer at home because I could see all the numbers at home, what was going on at work. So I'd start my shift 2 hours early. Then I'd go work my shift, and then I'd come home and I'd sit back at my computer for at least an hour or two, seeing how my numbers compared to everybody else's and seeing what was going on. I railroaded, and then I'd go to bed
and dream
about. I'd railroad my sleep. So I was doing this job 24/7 and not liking it because I couldn't fix it. And so me and a buddy of mine that I worked with as the yard master, we both applied as dispatchers. But before I applied to dispatcher, I came to you and I'm like, so I want to quit my job because I mean, I could have stayed as a yard master, of course. So I said, there's a new job available.
And P.S., it will make me have to go to Atlanta.
Yeah,
for
the good
10 weeks.
part about it is I'm going to make a lot of money doing this job. The not so good part about it is one, I have to go to Atlanta for 10 weeks.
Yes.
That's 2.5 months if you do the math. I also have to start at the bottom again, so I'll be on an extra board on call 24/7, right when I was just getting the shifts that I could finally hold good shifts, weekends off I even had. And without hesitation, I mean, we talked about it, but without hesitation, you're like, if you want to do it, I know you can. And this is...
I wasn't exactly in a position to say, oh, no, you keep your job, I quit mine.
But just like, if I'd have said no to you quitting the state, you'd have said, okay, you wouldn't have liked it. Right. And if you'd have told me no, I definitely wouldn't have liked it. But we trust each other enough. By this point in our relationship, we could talk to each other. We were a team.
Right.
So we talked to each other, not just as husband and wife, but as teammates, as business partners.
Right.
And you're like, go for it, do it. And and there was like bonus potential. There was more vacation. That was another thing, is I got another week's vacation, more personal days. And so I'm like, this package is here. It's just a few more miles away from, but it was actually quicker to drive to Indianapolis than it was to where I worked as a yard master. And so I go to Atlanta for 2.5 months. The worst 2.5 months of my life.
Yes.
And anybody listening that's in Atlanta or around Atlanta, I'm not knocking the city. I'm not. It's a beautiful city. But it was almost 600 miles away from my family.
Yes.
It was crazy fast living down there, and it was just not for me.
No, and so I'm at home running my new business.
Taking care of Addie.
On my own, which was not something I was used to because I had a really good partner in helping take care of our little girl. I mean, I can even remember one time being in the grocery store exhausted, and you were gone. I mean, you were in Atlanta, and again, like, Addie had a really bad gag reflex, and so we had been at the grocery store and it had taken forever. Grocery store always takes longer than you think it's going to. And she was being really good, but she was getting hungry, and I had in the diaper bag a banana. And not probably the best judgment, I let her have the banana to keep her pacified while I was trying to finish up the groceries.
Right.
And she chokes on the banana and proceeds to throw up all over my cart. And I was, 1, mortified, but 2, absolutely devastated, because all I could think was, I can't do this again. Like, I can't get her all packed up and back to the grocery store. Like, because the people at the grocery store were trying to help me. Like, they were asking me if I wanted to take her and leave, or did I want to try and check out, you know, get her cleaned up enough so we could check out. It was just it was a disaster. And I can just remember standing there going, oh my gosh, I can't do this again. Yeah. Like, we're going to have to get cleaned up enough so that I can check out, because I can't come here tomorrow and do this again. And I remember just thinking, this is so hard, and having a respect for people who do that on their own, that I never had known before, because I had such a good partner in helping me kind of hold down the fort. You know, like, if I wasn't feeling well, or if I was really tired one day, you would watch her while I go to the grocery store, or you would go to the grocery store. Like, so learning what, just a small glimpse of what that was like, was just a really hard period of time. And I can also remember I had went to a meeting, and some of my girlfriends were there at that meeting for my small business. And because you were in Atlanta and our babysitter had fallen through for that day, whatever it was, I had to bring Addie to the meeting. And, you know, it's my brand new business, and I was scared to do that, but I trusted the people that I was working with and clients. I still can remember to this day, because I had pulled out all the stops. I was like, okay, I'm going to get like a brand new, like, little toy that she's never seen before, so she'll be mesmerized by it, so she'll be quiet in the corner while I do what I have to do at this meeting. And so I had her a blanket out in the corner of that meeting, and my clients walk in, and one of my clients, complete business suit and everything, got down on the floor and played with her with that new toy. Just, I mean, to kind of like, they were just always so supportive. So that was amazing. But I remember after that meeting, what was so funny is I made the decision in the middle of that meeting, in the stress of all that meeting, that I was going to Atlanta. Like there was no, because most of my work was online other than that meeting. And I was like, I'm going to Atlanta. And I remember talking to one of my girlfriends after all of this, and she said, we knew when you were in that meeting that you were literally going to get in your car and drive to Atlanta. Like, you were done. Like, it was like you were done. Yep. You needed to go to Atlanta. So Addie and I spent many a day commuting back and forth to Atlanta.
I remember being on the bus, because they wouldn't let us drive to the school we had to go to. We had to take a bus, which, let me tell you, that's a lot of fun. But I'm on the bus, and I had just gotten out of school. And so I called you, and you were in the car. I'm like, hey, what's up? You know, we just got out of school. What are you doing? She's like, oh, you know, just driving to Atlanta. And I had no idea. It's not like she, you know, let me know in advance that she was coming down. And my heart leapt, because I was in mourning. Especially that first week was miserable.
Right.
And I was so excited, because that Friday you were driving down. I'm like, oh, where are you at? And I think you were just leaving, you know, so I had to wait 8 hours.
So to recap, when we first started this whole thing with Atlanta, it was like, okay, the school will pay for you to, or the railroad will pay for you to come home once during
halfway
the
through
10 weeks. So we can be big people, we can video chat, we can do all this stuff, and we'll make it work. Okay?
Yeah.
And it was the end of week 1.
And you were on your way
and
down
I was driving to Atlanta. And so
she can't be away from me.
So then we figured out, hey, we can think a little bit differently here, because I didn't have to go to an office job. I did have some meetings on my schedule that I had to honor about every 2 weeks or so. Yep. So when I wasn't at a meeting in Indianapolis, Addie and I were commuting back and forth to Atlanta, yep, to stay with you until we had to go back for the next meeting,
which was like the first time you came down, you got there like midnight, Friday night, Saturday morning, and then you stayed through like Sunday noon.
Right.
So you were only there for like a day and a half.
Because that wasn't really all that thought out. Because that was more of a, we're just going to go because we don't like this. And so then eventually we got it all figured out. And that's when, honestly, I started doing a lot more crock pot cooking because I was in this hotel room and it did have a fridge and all that, but there wasn't a lot of stuff to work with. So I packed up my crock pots and brought down there, and I started cooking for you and all your buddies.
You started cooking for me, and then it turned into you were cooking for all my buddies that were...
Yeah, so I started crock pot cooking.
I remember one of the first dishes you made down there was crock pot lasagna.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure
we're hanging out
in
the kitchen because the room I stayed in wasn't a bad room, but we're hanging out there in the kitchen, and then there's a knock on the door, and Pat, one of the guys in my class and one of my coworkers, knocks on the door. He's like, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing?
What's going on in there?"
He could smell something good cooking. I'm like, "Hey, you want some lasagna?" Yeah, it's in the crock pot. Crock pot? You can make lasagna in a crock pot? And so I gave him a plate of it, and he wanted more. In fact, I gave him leftovers of it, and he talked about that the rest of school. Yeah. That was, your wife is a really good cook.
I think I could have cooked anything at that point to all those guys that hadn't had.
And Addie was a hit with them because you got these rough and rugged railroaders. We're all seasoned. I think there might have been. I don't think there was anybody new from the street. Everybody had worked a position in the railroad, so they knew the rough and tumble life. We all talked all rough and big and bad and everything. And then I remember I had to study, and you stayed with me for a week. There was one point where you stayed, and so I had to go study, and I took Addie with me just into the room. And Addie at the time, if you told her to say something, she'd say it. And if you told her to animate it, she would. And so I took her into this room with all these mean, gruff, rough and tumble railroaders. And I said, "Say hello, boys." And she walked in, puts her hands up and goes, "Hello, boys." And so they all fell in love with her too, But,
Addie got her fill of, Addie almost was... She was speaking Dora Spanish by the time, because we had like a little video player that she would listen to on the commute, and she was so good in the car at that young age, because like there were times where we would be in really bad traffic and I'd be like, I think she was just scared to death, let's just be honest. So I'd be like, "You're gonna have to be quiet right now." But no, it was good. And then I also joke that we had every McDonald's toy between here and Atlanta, because that's what we would plan our breaks to stop at the different McDonald's. And I can remember, because it was like, especially with, she was between 2 and 3, and like I needed something new to keep her attention, because it was a long commute, back and forth. And so I can remember us making one of our planned stops, and it was like towards the end of the trip, but man, we needed a toy, and we went to that McDonald's. I still will never stop at that McDonald's again. We went to that McDonald's, we ordered our food, and we get the Happy Meal, and there's no toy in the box. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, the food is secondary to the toy.
You must entertain my child.
We have to have the toy. They had run out of the toys. And so, I can remember that desperation of like, no. Yeah. The food, you can keep the food. I need the toy. But no, we didn't get a toy that day. She was fine though. Everything, it all ended up working out.
Yeah, we made it work. It was rough. I told her when I got home, I said, I'll never ever, I wouldn't quit. I wasn't going to quit. I was going to go through it, and I did.
Right.
I said, I will never do it again, because I did not want to be apart from you.
Right.
Or Addie. And you can do video chats and stuff like that, but it's not like I could kiss you. It's not like I could hug my kid.
No. And again, the co-parenting is not, it's not easy when you're apart like that. So
I get back home and start my new job as a dispatcher, and we get pregnant again.
Oh.
And we lost a baby.
Yes, we did.
Again.
Yes.
And I had just started this new job. I had to be there, and I'm on call, and I'm answering every call. I'm like, they asked me if I want to work overtime. I was working overtime because I never made money like this before. So I couldn't tell the railroad no, you know, and I didn't want to make my new bosses not be impressed by me. I wanted to do a good job. I wanted to learn. I was like soaking up this information and learning the bigger picture of the railroad. That's something we always talk about on the railroad is you just need to see the bigger picture. And so I had advanced up to see the entire railroad, you know, or at least that portion of where I'd worked, I'd seen a much bigger picture of it. And so that's all my focus was on. I mean, I was, you know, with you and taking care of Ad when I was home, but I tried to be at the office as much as I could possibly be because I wanted to be the best that I could possibly be. And I remember being at work, and you had a doctor's appointment, and it was the first one I'd ever missed.
Yes.
And you called me while I was at work, and you said that, you know, that the nurse said it wasn't viable and that you had miscarried.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I was destroyed. I was a mess because, one, we hadn't had to deal with something like that in like 10, 11, 12 years. Mm-hmm. And so it brought up those old fears of, oh my gosh, are we going to have troubles like we did when we were first married when that happened? And then the other part of it was I felt so bad because I was stuck at work at a desk and I couldn't just get up and leave because I had a railroad to run. And so I was stuck there and I couldn't be there for you. Now, in all transparency, I went back there and I was talking to my boss and he said, hey, is something wrong? I said, my wife just called me and found out that she'd miscarried. And he says, do I need to send you home? He had nobody to send in to my place, but he's like, if you can wait 2 hours, I'll I can send you home. And it was like 4 hours before the shift was over. There was, you know, and so, but I was miserable. I was broken. It broke me because it scared me again. It broke me because I wasn't there for you like I'd been there before for everything. Even when it was bad with the doctor's visits and everything, I was there. But I stopped right then and I prayed. I'm like, I can't be what I was before for this. I have to be there for her for whatever she needs. I have to take care of her, whatever she needs. And so I think because we had worked so hard to be as close as we were and as responsive as we were to each other's needs, that we were able to definitely not get over it, but get past it and move on. But I felt terrible, you know, but I was relieved though that we did it together this time, you know, and
I think that after when we had the first 2 miscarriages, it was more or less this, like, not just dealing with the miscarriages, but also dealing with the thought that, you know, children weren't possible.
Yeah.
So then Addie comes along, and not only was a child possible, but like she totally like made our world 10 times bigger. And so it also gave, I think, us a sense that, well, that season of loss is over. Like, we don't have to be as fearful about this as possible. And so the rug was a little bit pulled out from under, at least under me, whenever, oh, here we go again. It's a very similar problem to what had happened with the first 2. And I think I just kind of was like, okay, I think it deflated my balloon, so to speak, in making me I didn't know what to think. And so it also I think I feared to begin with that maybe our relationship would be hurt a little bit, but then I had a lot of confidence in our relationship because we had been through a lot.
Yep.
But at the same time, personally, I did not deal with it well. I kind of just checked out of life for a little while of just going through the motions. And, you know, that's very easy to do whenever, you know, we're working and trying to keep our head above water and trying to do a million and one things.
You really poured yourself into your work then?
Yes.
With that? And I think that was your kind of your therapy, was you...
and I don't think it was healthy, though, because I can remember coming out of it. And when I came out of it, because then the question is, okay, you know, we had these dreams and hopes for another child, and are we going to do that again? Because also there's lots of pressure. And I think it's changing now. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's not. Like everybody wants to know what your plans are all the time. We got that before we had Addie. Like people were not happy with the fact that we weren't constantly trying to have children.
Right. Then we have Addie.
And then we have Addie, and it's like, when are you going to have the next one?
Got a wonderful baby. You going to have any more? Like,
it's weird and all that kind of stuff. And then also the people who make comments about only children and all that. And it's like, it's just really, one, it's odd that those are the things we comment on as a society. And then also, like, anybody who says anything about an only child, it's like, you know, people don't always plan that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Anyhow, so long story short, when I come out of the fog of being just really down about the third miscarriage, I decide that I want to put all, or at least for me personally, like, I don't want to rob Addie of any more of me being checked out, is what I decide. And I can't predict how I'm going to react if we continue to have these miscarriages and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just like, I kind of get to the point where I go all in on Addie.
And you did. I mean, you were, before she was even born, you were a great mom to Addie. You did everything, you know, very carefully and prepared very well in order to bring Addie into this world. Then when you brought her in, you were so good with her. But then, after all that was said and done, you did. I mean, you were like full bore. This will be the greatest child in the history of children.
No, I think a lot of mothers feel that way. I think the bottom line for me was I could keep trying to pursue this thing that may or may not happen. But in doing that, like, I think there was probably a good 6-month period there where I was kind of not the best mom I could be because I was in this fog of, you know, the miscarriage, the loss, what all that meant. And I just wasn't, you know, Addie was enough for me to be like, I would rather not keep going through this heartache, which clearly is something that, like, my body has doesn't always do pregnancy well.
Yeah.
And so I would rather, so for me, that was my decision. I just made that decision that I wanted to be awake. And when I mean awake, I wanted to be present with her. I mean, and that was part of why I wanted to, you know, work at home and all that kind of stuff. So it all was for naught if I was just going to be in a fog all the time trying to. And
I think that was something
for something more.
God was definitely, he had it. And again, where, you know, God didn't cause that, but God was there for us when it happened. We were struggling with church. I think we were going to church, but we weren't like, I mean, I wasn't fully checked into it because I was working these odd shifts, and a lot of times I was working Sunday mornings.
I call it white knuckling. Yeah. At that time, like where, like I had always been in church as a child. In college, we had found some church circles that we liked to be in, but I had went through a major shift in just my relationship with the a religious community. Like I didn't feel like I fit in anymore because I was struggling a lot with the way that I felt in my heart Jesus would react to people versus how some communities,
how people react to people.
And just the impression that other people were getting about Christians and how it was all getting tied into things that it just wasn't. I was really struggling to find a place to fit, but then I also felt this obligation, for lack of a better word, to go to church. Like I needed, and then once I had my daughter, I wanted my kid to experience the things that I had experienced, but I really was struggling with fitting in. I oftentimes explained it as, feeling lost in a place where you once knew like the back of your hand. Like, I mean, I was the kid that got the Bible trivia sent home. Right. So it was like I was really struggling to fit, and we had found a kind of fit for Addie when she was young. We had found a really good children's program. Yeah. She was also in preschool there, and we were happy with that. We personally were not like really plugged into the church itself.
I was leading worship whenever I was asked to, if I could do it with around work and everything, but there's a difference between participating in a church and growing your relationship with God, you can have
the community there. Yeah.
So I think that's where we're going to end it for now, is a ridiculous invite to a church that was way too far away from our house. And how a woman named Becky changed our lives forever.
Yes.
We're going to end it there because you can binge watch, or you can binge listen to this in the next episode. For all y'all watching on the YouTubes, you'll have to stay tuned until next week if you don't want to just listen. But right now we want to thank, again, recipesthatcrock.com, who is making this possible, as well as our patrons over at patreon.com/recipesthatcrock. Thanks to our Crock partners and all of our supporters over there that are taking care of paying for these microphones and these headphones.
They're like, aren't the microphones paid for by now?
Our Bob Ross Chia Pet that eventually will put hair on. But we thank you for that. If you want to be a part of our Patreon family, our little community over there, you can check it out. Again, it's patreon.com/recipesthatcrock to find out different ways to support this channel, this podcast, and what we're doing with RTC, as well as our Crock Posse. And then for all y'all watching on YouTube, if you have not become a subscriber and you want to be a part of this little community called the Crock Posse, all you got to do is click subscribe down below. Give us a like if you like what we're doing here. And we will come back with how Becky changed our lives.
They're like, who's Becky? Alrighty.
Cue the music.